Roman J. Israel Esquire is a film directed by Dan Gilroy, the man who wrote and directed Nightcrawler back in 2014. That was one of my favorite movies of that year. It's a biopic that somehow is not a biopic, but it feels like a biopic. Like, it feels like this could have happened in real life, but as far as I know, it's not a biopic. It's a non-biopic biopic. This one stars the charismatic king himself, Denzel Washington, Carmen Ejogo, I'm really glad I got her name right, and Colin Farrell, among other people. So Denzel Washington in this film plays a very idealistic and old school defense attorney. This is a guy from the Stone Age. He's a dinosaur of activism. He works at this very small law firm with his other partner. He's kind of the brains behind the law firm. Like, he sits behind the desk and he deals with all the legalese and all the legal hula hoops. His partner is the one that goes out in court and handles the actual cases. But one day his partner gets a heart attack and is put into a coma, and then his family decides that they're going to get rid of the law firm because it's been losing money for the last few years. And so Roman J. Israel has to go out into the world and try to find himself another job. He ends up working with Colin Farrell at this really big, prestigious law firm. And then Roman starts getting into some trouble because of stuff. And then we have a movie that deals with Roman trying to figure out his way out of a really messy situation. Not enough anymore to say that Denzel Washington is great. I mean, newsflash, hello, he's Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is always great. It's lazy to say that. Like, oh, well, Denzel Washington's great. It's like, oh, okay, well, water's wet too. You got anything else obvious you want to tell me? The best way I can describe his character in this movie is that he's kind of an unintentional, intentional asshole. You can tell the way he talks to people. He's so eccentric and so weird and so in your face about certain things that he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize that when he says certain things, it's going to offend and piss off people. Like, he just kind of says stuff and people are offended, and he doesn't really seem to understand or get that whole social interaction thing. At the same time, this is a guy that's really smart. He's memorized years and years and years of legal codes and such, and he talks to people kind of in a condescending way. Like, he's kind of a savant. He's kind of a I'm smarter than you and this is why type of dude. There's a fascinating push and pull to his character, and I guess that's why I was the most fascinated with him in this movie, and Denzel Washington and the quirks and the way he sells it. He also has this really weird thing where he talks to people almost like he's talking to himself. Like, the way he talks to people in this movie, the conversations that he has with them, you would think that that's a conversation that he has by himself with the lights off, where he's just kind of making words rattle out there in the dark. Really, all the performances in the movie were really great. Carmen Ejogo plays this young, very passionate social rights activist who is very inspired by some of the things that Roman has done and said in his career. You've got Colin Farrell, who Roman has to go work with. They have some really interesting back and forth and interplay among them as characters. You can tell that he wants to have this big-ass law firm and he wants to help people. He wants to help the common man, but at the same time, he's not running a charity here. He wants to make money. Dan Gilroy knows how to shoot a beautiful looking movie, and this is a very beautiful looking movie. Great shots, great cinematography, great production and set design. Everything about this movie is very sleek and well produced, and I gotta give credit and love to Dan Gilroy and his camera people for bringing out that quality about this movie. I'll also give a shout out to the soundtrack. Soundtrack in this movie, yeah, it is pretty awesome. The main character of this movie is kind of a throwback dinosaur relic of a time long past, and so it makes sense that the music in the movie would mimic that, and so there are some really catchy classic tunes on the soundtrack here. I kind of want the soundtrack now to think about it. This is a movie with all the potential in the world to tell a really compelling story about a really fascinating character with a really great performance by Denzel Washington. But potential and reality, they're two different things. And the potential in this movie, it started up with the Golden State Warriors, and it ended up somewhere with, you know, the Philadelphia 76ers, where it has moments of goodness, but you just know they're not going to win a championship anytime soon. Biggest problem with this movie is that it is completely unfocused. The narrative is kind of all over the place. It feels like a very jumbled and sometimes incoherent mess. This is a movie that has potential morsels and nuggets of really interesting stuff that they could talk about. Really interesting issues, activism, the judicial system. They tackle a little bit of everything in this movie, but the problem is that they can never really focus on anything at one particular time because they're too busy jumping all over the place. There are a host of really uninteresting subplots that drag this movie down, that distract from what you feel could be a compelling narrative if the movie, you know, focused its shit up a little bit. It's one of those movies that simultaneously feels too long, but at the same time feels too short. It's just kind of one of those conflicting things where it feels too long, but it also feels rushed. At the end of the day, I had to step back from the film and I had to go, you know what? If Denzel Washington wasn't giving a great performance, in fact, if Denzel Washington wasn't even in this movie, Would I give a shit about it? Like, would I care that much about this movie? Nah, I can't really say that I would be interested in this movie. And as a result, this is a movie that, while it's enjoyable and it's a decent watch, especially if you're a Denzel Washington fan, I don't really think that I'm gonna be looking to see this movie ever again. It's a positive rating, but it's on the low end. Roman J. Israel Esquire, Golden Age Man of Steel. Guys, that's my review for Roman J. Israel Esquire. Tell me, have you seen the movie and what did you think about it? Please comment below and let me know what your favorite Denzel Washington performance of the last few years is. And if you like what you see, tell me how you feel and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace!